Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Now, as we continue with our positive parenting series brought to you by the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, today we are going to be talking about digital safety and how we can protect our children from the dangers of the online world. Now, all month long, we have been focusing on different areas where our children's safety can be compromised, from safety around the home to body safety. And the authorities' experts have shared helpful advice and tips to parents and guardians as they build healthy, positive relationships with their children. Remember, it truly takes a village to raise our children. And so he joined me last week, but he's here again. Joining us is Mr. Marlon Bascombe, who is the manager of the Investigation and Intervention Unit at the Authority. Good morning, Mr. Bascombe.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
Of course. Now, digital safety. Perhaps we can start by what that means and ways that children are impacted.
Well, for me, we're looking essentially at ensuring that as parents, we are very, very, very vigilant. So in the same way that we talk about physical safety, you want to ensure that the environment that your child in is safe. You want to, as far as possible, ensure that you create a safe online presence for your child. And the thing about this is that it is very, very, very difficult. I cannot underestimate how difficult it is, given that unlike a physical space, there are so many areas of the digital space that we just do not have control over. So with respect to that, it's going to be almost a multifaceted approach that as a parent you're going to have to take to ensure that your child is going to be safe online.
Of course. And does this protection differ with the age of the children? So, for example, if your child is at 4, will that protection need to be different for example, if you have a preteen or a teenage child?
In some ways, yes, because especially with a younger child, that's when you have a little bit more control over things like parental controls, over the amount of time that the child may spend on a particular device. But as the child gets older and they have a little bit more freedom, that's when it becomes more important for you to have that relationship with your child, to be able to speak to them about various topics, so that even if they see something that they maybe should not see or are uncomfortable with, that they come and talk to you. Because the fact is, it's just impossible for you as a parent to fully monitor that online world. Yeah.
Now, let's go back to the younger child, because we have these parental control and parental devices. Are they really effective? Because I feel like children are so tech-savvy, some of them could go around the parental controls.
Yeah, no. They're, for the most part, they're not. I would still encourage parents to utilize them as far as possible. But I found through personal experience with my own children that very often your child is able to just bypass these parental controls. Your children are able to eventually figure out some of the codes you may use. Your children know if you delete an app, they simply know to go back on Google Play or any other thing and download them again. So then what is most effective in these situations is the ability for you to link your child's device or your child's account with one of yours, so that you can just monitor the activity. So you can see when they go on to something that you may not like, you can go and check back their online history. That is more effective than the actual parental control itself. They just blew past that.
So I've heard, yes. Now, in terms of protecting them from, let's say, illicit activity, I know it might become more of a problem as they get older. How can parents ensure that, they protect their children against something like this?
Well, two things. What I've learned myself as a parent is that the danger is there across the board, and age doesn't seem to matter. So, and in this instance, this is where, as parents, we really need to be, number one, tech savvy and understand a lot about a lot of different things at once. All right. So what I mean by that is, number one, we spoke about parental controls. Make sure you know everything about that. Make sure you have the ability to monitor your children. Number two, be aware of all of the apps, or as many of them as you can stomach going forward. So I don't just mean Facebook. I've learned that old people don't use Facebook.
Yes.
So learn about Tinder, learn about Instagram, learn about TikTok, learn about there are so many things, I wouldn't be able to remember them all now, but learn as much as you can about all of these things. And then be very, very careful with respect to the games that your children are playing online. So normally, or previously, when you buy a physical copy of a game, there's the online rating, there's the rating system for the games. Similarly, now you can simply download those games through your device, whether it be a phone or even something like a PlayStation or Xbox. You still need to be aware of the ratings for those games. But, and this one is the most important one for me personally, even when you have smaller children and you're sure that all of the games are rated E for everyone, be aware of those games like Roblox, like Fortnite, even something like Minecraft, that has the ability for persons to instant message your child, right? So this one is a personal example for me where in the game Roblox, someone was attempting to find out from my son where did he live, who lives with him, these kind of things, right? And you have to be vigilant for that. So it's a game for a child, but any random person could communicate with your child through this medium. Okay. Yeah.
Now, in terms of the cell phones, because I know there are some parents who are like, you are too young to own a cell phone, and so they ban their children from having that device. Is there a certain age that the child should be allowed to have a cell phone or to have a device, or does it depend on the trust of the parents or, of course, the relationship with the child?
I think it's going to heavily depend upon that parent-child relationship. The fact is that we see children with devices from as young as 3-4 years old, because what has happened is that these devices become substitutes for us as parents. So we put it on YouTube and we give it to them, right? So even though you may not give your child an actual phone, you may give them a tablet, and in this world that's almost the same thing, because they can download WhatsApp or another app and have full conversations with persons. But then even in doing so, even as I mentioned YouTube, right? Your child may be looking at things that you believe may be, appropriate for children. But then even on YouTube, you may hear something like Mario Kart is playing and you're hearing curse words. You're hearing different things coming through to your child. So we just need to be careful as far as possible. And as we always say, have that close relationship with your child.
Because I'm wondering, so we are talking about parental devices. That may not be, the best. Well, you should still use it, but still
Yes,
you have to be sure. I'm listening to the relationship that you have with your child, but then you can't be with your child 24/7.
No.
So is there any way that you can still ensure that they are protected even while a parent or guardian is not present?
Well, a couple of things. One, if you can have tracking options on the devices, phones or whatnot, that's there. I also spoke about making sure that whatever device your child has is linked to yours, so that in some instances you can, of course, go through the history, but you can even see what they are on live, right? So I do have friends who would have seen their child on something and then pick up the phone and called and told them, especially during COVID, what you're doing on this, you should be in school, right? So those things are right now your best bet to be able to monitor without hovering over your child 24/7. Yeah.
Now, you would have noticed in your personal experience that somebody was trying to get information from your son, but there are instances where people also use these games and these apps to groom children, to encourage them to do certain things. Can we speak some more about that?
Yes, so that's where that instant messaging part comes through. So suddenly the child is being exposed to information that you don't want them being exposed to. Persons they're developing full relationships online, and you may not be aware of that. So that's where now in the physical space we talk about knowing your child's friends. As far as possible, you need to know who you have given permission for your children to be online with. So for example, my older son, I know a lot of his friends as he's just finished primary school. So a lot of them play games online. So we are making sure that we know exactly who are the children that are playing online. And so the other day, one father told me he heard a strange voice, but it was simply that one of the boys' voice has started to change. So that person sounded adult. But again, it speaks to the level of vigilance, because we wanted to know, well, who is this man with our children? So it's important for us to be very careful there. And as far as possible, pick up the device, go into the app, look at the history, look at the conversations, look at everything, because you want to hope, of course, that your child comes and tells you what is happening, but you are going to have to monitor, because sometimes it's the only way to see exactly what is happening.
Of course.
Yeah.
Do you get reports of grooming at the authority, and is it more leaning towards one gender than the other?
I would say slightly it's leaning more towards the girls in terms of persons attempting to groom the girls, but it is there for the boys as well. Let's not think it's not happening. It's there for sure. Yeah.
And these would be adults who are reaching out to children, or do we see older children as well reaching out to younger ones?
Unfortunately, usually adults.
Adults.
Yeah.
Now let's switch gears to cyberbullying, because cyberbullying has become more prevalent, I would say, within the past, let's say, 10, 15 years. How do we protect, or is there a way to protect our children from that?
it's difficult again. All of the stuff that I would have just mentioned would apply, because again, the cyberbullying is either done directly through that instant messaging method, or even on whatever app itself, the Facebook, the Instagrams and whatnot. So again, once you see something, it's important for you as a parent, upon speaking with your child, to then now be able to see something, contact the cybercrime unit, call the Children's Authority at 996, and then allow us to investigate the matter further. Have conversations as far as possible. If, for example, the children are in the same school, you go into the school, you speak to the teacher, you have conversations with the other parents, because again, it's a space that is new to us still, relatively, and it's much more difficult to, for want of a better word, police than the classroom.
Of course.
Yeah.
And is it that, because I know that some people were making the connection between what may have been cyberbullying during the pandemic and the school violence that we're seeing playing out now. So do you think there's a relation between the two?
I don't want to say definitively, but there is some, because what we saw in the school violence is that grudges that would have taken place over the previous 2 years, suddenly now we are in contact and we can act upon them, right? And there was not those spaces available for these things to be rectified beforehand. So when school opened, we opened with a bang, for want of a better word. Yeah.
All right, well, Mr. Bascombe, anything else you want to add before we close?
As always, I just remind persons to please be vigilant. Educate yourselves, no matter how old you are or think you are, about the technology. And of course, if you see something, please see something. Contact the authority at 996 or 800-2014. Go on our Facebook page or on our website, ttchildren.org, and have a look at the information that is there. Feel free also to contact the police and ask for the cybercrime unit to assist in any reports that you need to make.
Well, Mr. Bascombe, always a pleasure. I'm hoping to see you again next week.
No problem at all.
As we continue, so thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Bascombe, of course, for coming and speaking to us and just telling us all the valuable information that the Children's Authority have to share, and of course, just tips on how to keep our children safe and to foster those strong and healthy families. And from next month, we will begin a new segment with Children's Authority, so of course, you have to stay tuned for that. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.